Hi, today I'm going to check out my favorite Marshall model and the amp that I'm using the most, both here at home and in my rehearsal space when I'm recording. It's the 2204, the 50 watt master model or master volume model. It was introduced in 1975, I think, around that at least. Both the 2204 and 2203, which is the 100 watt version. And then it kind of moved on into the JSM 800 line in 1981. The unit I'm going to show you today and the amp that I'm playing the most, this very unit, is from 1977. Now, back then the voltages in the transformers were lower than in the JSM 800 line. So it has a really plexi-like brown tone. And that combined with the more, it has much more available gain than a plexi or a super lead or a 50 watt lead. So it has a huge range, this design. And I think 2204 is one of the most common circuits that boutique builders base their amps on. So it's a really classic design. Now, if you're going to compare the tone of a 50 watt lead, in 1987 and the 2204, the master volume model, it's a bit more nasal, but they're very similar. But I really like that amp. I'm going to show you the amp today using a Gibson Les Paul Custom and a Fender Strat from 1973. I'm going to play the Strat through a 1960 cab, and the Les Paul I'm going to play both through the 1960 cab, but I'm also going to combine the 1960 cab with the 112 with the J12H30 55 Hertz in it. At the end of the video, I'm going to go through in quite some detail actually how I set up the EQ on the amp for different applications and different tones and different guitars. I'm going to show you how I position the mics and how I mix that down and how I pan stuff and so on. So I think the time for that is somewhere here in the frame, so you can, if you want to skip ahead, then check that out. All right, let's go. thing about this amp is that it has an extremely big bright cap. And the bright cap is a component that filters off a lot of low end at the beginning of the circuit to make it kind of firmer in the bass. But it also means that if you don't tweak it right, it's going to sound really thin. One way to tweak it, if you're going to use a Strat with the neck pickup that we're going to do a lot of in this video, is that you roll off all presence and all treble, and you maximize the mids, because that's kind of important to get gain out of these kind of circuits. Then the bass, you can have everything from 0 to full. I think I'm having it at full for the Strat in this video. For most Marshalls, it would pay off to kind of back off quite a lot on the bass, but for this one you can have a lot of bass. Then another cool thing about this amp is that it sounds great at really low volumes, so the master works really well. So here I'm having it at kind of between 1 and 2, and the preamp I use a bunch of different settings, but I think for this amp, especially for Hendrix tones and for 70s hard rock, it's between 6 and 7. That's where the magic happens. So I kind of use settings like that. And for some solos, I have it on full as well. But then if you want loud volume, it's just gonna scream. You have to have potted pickups and stand quite a long way from the amp. Then with the Les Paul, you get the great tone with the presence and treble all the way down. But there you can go up to 4 or something like that. Then you get a good balanced tone, but it is a bit more crispy. But if you're not careful with the mic setup, then it's going to sound fizzy. And for Les Paul, you shouldn't, the bass, even though it has a really big bright cap, you should knock off the bass. You should have kind of 2, 3 or something like that, or even down to 0, depending on how much gain you have. Because even though these amps stay firm all the way up, at full preamp volume, you're really going to want to roll off some bass, especially if the master is up. So when it comes to miking, I'm going to use an AKG C414 BLX2 from the early 2000s. I think I know it's set to Omni, so that's the room mic. I'm going to pan it hard right, almost hard right. And then, so there will be 3 different setups today when it comes to the close mics and the guitars. One setup will be Les Paul with only the 1968 cab, and then I'm going to use a 548 as a close mic. I'm going to use I'm going to close mic it at dead center. But for the Strat, to get the Hendrix tones, I'm going to back out like this with the mic. So you can see the mic is kind of this point is kind of dead center, but I'm going to point it down to the peripheral points. In my experience, that gives the best Hendrix tone. But for the Les Paul, it's going to be dead center like this, and to pick up as much treble as possible. That's just going to sound fizzy with the Strat. The other setup, which I'm only going to use on the Les Paul, is going to be using the 2204 with both cabs. So I'm going to set it at 8 ohms because these are both 16 ohm cabs. So here I have an open back with a G12 H30 from 1971. I'm going to mic it with this E906, combine it with this one and the room mic. So I'm going to use this one in the middle because this one has a lot more presence than that one, because it's that one is 4x12, so you have the kind of mutual coupling and the cab that makes it sound bigger, but also more distant and also more scooped. So I'm going to have this one in the middle to give it the presence. and this one slightly panned to the left, you know, this close mic. And then we have the room mic I described before to the right. So you're going to have presence from this one, a big thing a bit to the left, and some room to the right from the room mic. Let's check out the speaker. This is my, whoops, sorry. This is probably my all-time favorite speaker. So it's a G12H 3055 Hz from 1971. It actually has a big crack, which it had when I bought it in the over here, I think. You can see it. But it's still great speaker I've ever played. And the next greatest is this one. This one, it's by far the best out of the 4 speakers in this cab. It has a really full sound.